This is Beyond the Moon, a Ditch Witch podcast where we dig deep into news, job site stories, Ditch Witch culture, and all the other dirt that makes up the industry.
Hey, welcome back everybody to another episode of Beyond the Moon, a Ditch Witch podcast. I'm your host, Sean Hubbard, and I'm with a very special guest today, a seasoned, grizzled veteran of the Ditch Witch division, Ayden Lumbers. How are you, Ayden?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Good. So far, so good. So before we jump right in with Ayden and talk about her awesome story, I did want to give a shout out to 3 individuals that I put through the ringer earlier this summer. So we had this massive event, AEM, which is the Association of Equipment Manufacturers. They were on a nationwide tour, a bus tour, where they stopped by all these manufacturing facilities throughout the country and put on this big event. And we coupled that with the groundbreaking event for our new paint line. It's a 170,000 square foot thing. It's supposed to bring like 100 jobs or something to Perry. It was an awesome event. We probably had close to 1,000 employees at the event, and AEM was there, and they were getting social media videos and long form videos. They're putting together a documentary on this. But Craig Boyd, Audrey Cross, and Matt Lumbers, thank you so much. I know you guys kind of got voluntold that you were going to be part of this video series for AEM, and I told them that it was going to be 8 to 10 minutes on camera, and each one of them were on camera for over an hour, just sweating under the hot lights, and they weren't sure what was going on, and that was my fault. So you 3, I appreciate it. The videos turned out great. I've seen them. Awesome. So thank you so much. So I just wanted to get that out. You may have recognized one of those names. This is Ayden Lumbers. I gave a shout out to Matt Lumbers. There's a Lumbers connection at Ditch Witch. So I found out earlier this summer that Ayden is a 4th generation Ditch Witch employee.
That's right.
Yeah, and we talked about that a little bit. Did you know that? I mean, obviously you know your dad works there, but what is that? What was the family ties that you're aware of?
Honestly, I was not that aware of. There's my great-grandfather, Robert.
Right.
He wasn't super close. I was really young. I don't remember a whole lot.
You didn't go to work with great-grandpa?
Oh, no. By the time that I was old enough to really remember a lot of my great-grandfather, he was that old man that sat in his recliner, and we got those Easter baskets on the holidays, right? And that was the extent of my knowledge of my great-grandfather, and it didn't come out until later this year that I found out that everybody had welded.
Right.
And I knew my dad did, and I knew my grandfather knew a little bit. I didn't know that he was out there doing it as a job.
Right.
So that was kind of crazy.
Your dad, he doesn't weld now, does he?
Occasionally, yeah. Actually, he goes out on the weekends when he's feeling like it, and he just goes out there and welds.
That's pretty cool. I didn't realize that that you're a 4th generation welder even. I just thought maybe he was 4th generation employee.
No, it's a 4th generation welder out on the shop floor.
Wow. I'd like to know how many pieces of parts or equipment that the Lumbers have had their fingers on.
I would too. I bet it's a lot.
We need to make a note here. Let's figure out a way to look into that, because I think it's be a pretty impressive number.
Well, you're gonna have to find out our stamps. I'm not telling you mine.
Oh, okay. We don't want to know. We don't know which ones Ayden sent out there. But hey, so you obviously your family has a long history of welding.
Yes.
What is the experience like in podcasting?
None.
So let's talk about that a little bit, because it was kind of a funny story. It happened pretty quick, but if you can tell me, what was your experience on how you found out that you were going to be a guest on Beyond the Moon?
It was right after lunch, right? I had already been out in the heat, sweating, feeling gross. I'd just gotten back from lunch. I kid you not, 5 minutes before.
Yeah.
I'm in my stall getting ready to go back to work, and my supervisor came down, and he scared the crap out of me because he doesn't say anything. You can't hear out on the shop floor. So I turn around, I'm like, oh, hey, what's up?
Good to see you.
Yeah, normally when your supervisor comes down and something's up, you're in trouble, something. So I'm a little on edge. I'm like, what's going on? And he's like, hey, did you know that you're going to be going to Tulsa? No, I didn't. But that's cool. Awesome.
Yeah, well, see, it was kind of funny how that all came together. I assumed that they were going to ask you if you were interested in being a guest.
Nope.
They told you.
It was told.
Yeah, so much like I voluntold your dad that he's going to be on video, Same thing happened to you. It's kind of funny how that works out.
It is.
Yeah. Well, we're glad you're here, and you get at least a few hour break from welding.
Yeah.
So maybe we'll have a future in podcast. But let's talk about you a little bit. So your family has a long and rich history at Ditch Witch. Does that mean that you are from Perry? Your family's from Perry?
Yes.
Let's talk about where you're from and your upbringing.
Well, I was born in Stillwater.
Okay.
Not too far from Perry.
Yeah.
And my family, as far as I know, has been living in Perry my whole life. And it's been, home, small town. Everybody knows everybody.
Oh, yeah.
It's super homey, comfortable.
Did you graduate from Perry High School?
Yeah, recently. 2 years ago.
2 years ago. Jeez.
Yeah.
Makes me old.
It makes me really young.
Yeah, I know. So did you, so post-Perry High School, where did Aiden go?
I went to NOC Tonkawa.
Okay, for what?
Business.
Just so you have your associates from NOC Tonkawa?
I do, yes.
Awesome.
I graduated in 2023.
Okay.
I took online classes during high school, advanced online classes.
Jumpstart.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wanted out.
Out of Perry? Or just out of high school?
Just out
I
of
gotcha.
schooling.
Okay.
It's just stressful and it's a lot of work and
Yeah.
I want to be where I want to be now, but I have to wait and do all that schooling first. And
Understood. So are you in school now?
Yes.
Okay.
I got into OSU online. While I'm working full time, I'm taking online classes in my evenings. So yeah,
Glutton for punishment.
Oh yeah, full day of work, no stopping.
No, that's good. So what are we in school at OSU for?
Business management, or it was management. Now it's supply chain management specifically.
Where did the welding interest come from? I mean, obviously your family history has a lot of welding in it, but I don't know if that was something that you were really privy to. So where did the interest in welding come from?
There was no initial interest in welding at all. There was
Is there interest now?
Yeah. Oh,
Okay,
yeah.
okay,
Love the job. It's awesome. Besides the heat's terrible.
Yeah, it's hot.
But the job itself, I love it. I love working with my hands. It gives me something to do. It's that mind-numbing kind of work. I got a lot going on up here, and
Right.
it kind of keeps it quiet, and I can just do my job.
Just do your job and knock it out. But it's not something that you had thought about previously.
Oh, no. I remember a distinct summer that my father was like, hey, come out with me to the shop. I want to show you something, And I'm like this tall. And I'm okay. So I go out there and he hands me this welding helmet. It was the first time I've ever seen one, right? And they look like they're just this big screen, right? I don't know.
Oh, yeah.
It's
I've seen
just
'em.
strange. They're just weird. So I'm, okay. I stick it on. It doesn't fit, so I have to hold it, right? And it's hot. It was one of those blistering summers. I just remember being so hot. And we're out in the shop. There's no air conditioning. He starts welding, right? And there's sparks are flying out. I'm terrified.
This thing's going to blow up.
Yeah. Oh, my gosh.
on fire.
It's
Yeah.
terrifying. And so I'm watching him, and, you can't see anything but the sparks. So when he stops welding, you're like, are you done? And no, he'd start right back up. Okay.
Yeah.
And there was no interest. It's hot. It's
Probably
scary.
don't know what he's doing.
Yeah. And then, afterwards he'd be like, look what I did. And, I'm this big and I don't really know what's going on.
Yeah.
Oh, cool. You just laid a little metal there and yay.
It's exciting.
I didn't understand the importance of what he was doing.
Yeah. No,
I
it
just
is
remembered
important.
it was hot.
Yeah, it is hot. So welding is a difficult job. It's hot, like you talked about, but it is wildly important. So if you can speak to that a little bit, I mean, what do you feel like when you're welding some equipment? Is this something that you're just trying to get done with as fast as possible, or is there a quality component? Or
Quality is always a component in what we do out there.
Right.
Because it depends on where you're at, but it's still important. If you're working on the big heavy stuff, the internal parts of the machines, those are things that are going to hold that machine together.
Right.
Right. There's somebody's going to be driving that around. If your weld breaks and something else falls off, that could be that person's life.
It's not good.
No, not good at all.
Right.
I work in sheet metal, which is the outside of those machines, the
Okay.
pretty parts you see,
Yeah.
right? The
The pretty
cosmetic
ones.
stuff
Right.
that gets painted and, the logo goes on it. Doors, the thin metals, that's what I work on. It's a lot slower, a lot smaller.
Is it more like meticulous, or like why is it slower? Okay,
Yes.
so it's just very fine detail.
Yes. You turn the power down on a welder. I'm still learning the specifics. I
Right.
just started this
well, you
year.
know way more than I do. I didn't know they had power settings. So there
right?
you go.
These are all new things. and you turn it down and you're running a slower amperage on that welder. And so you have to, it's a lot slower, a lot more meticulous, and you have to be very careful about how far you're going into that metal, or else it'll burn through because it's so thin.
That's probably not ideal.
Yeah, and these are parts that are going on the outside. You see a flaw, and like your buyer's going to see that. So you got to make sure everything's flawless before it leaves your stall.
Yeah, that's awesome. So no interest in welding, no experience in welding. How did that come about? Did you just go up to HR department at Ditch Witch and say, I'm going to be your next welder? And they said, yeah, come on in.
I didn't even know Ditch Witch had an HR in the building.
Yeah.
I knew little to nothing about the company, which is kind of crazy considering my family has such a heavy history in it.
Right, and you're from Perry.
Right. Well, I knew, Ditch Witch is a big part of Perry.
Yeah.
And it's a big part of my life. My family is very much the work stays at work kind of people.
Right.
I didn't even know what my dad did in the company until recently. Granted, he moves around a lot. He's a very busy person.
He's a movie star now, too.
Yeah, apparently. Crazy stuff.
Yeah.
So that was that. And then I was at my previous job for a while, and bills are expensive, and I wanted to move out. I'm young. I'm going out of my parents' house.
Go do your thing.
I was just graduated college, and I just wanted a little bit more independence. I'm reaching. I want to get out.
Yep.
So I'm looking for a job that'll pay bills. Had found an apartment. Was looking to get out, and Ditch Witch is one of the biggest paying companies we've got in town. And I wanted to be close to my family. and I wanted to be not so far from a college campus that I wouldn't be able to go. Just in case.
Yeah, checks out.
And so I was a little hesitant. My dad was like, "Hey, there's positions at Ditch Witch. Why don't you just come do a tour? We'll see if you like it." And I was like, "All right," I caved. Right. So I go on this tour, and we toured the entire company over there. Went through everything, went and saw like warehouse and all that fun stuff. And these are all nitty gritty stuff that I had no idea was out there.
Yeah, don't even know what you're looking at.
No, I see the front of the building and I keep going.
Right.
And so we went in, looked. And by the end of the tour, he was like, "Why don't you just come with me to HR? We'll just look at what they've got. If anything sounds interesting, just send in an application. You don't have to accept it. You don't just get it out there just to
Let's
see."
just see.
Yeah. So there was one more position on they do a Meridian classings out there, or they've moved them since then. I was the last class to do it on Ditch Witch property there in the building. And they had me, go online, apply. Afterwards, I went home. I kid you not, 2 hours later, they call me and I'm like, "Hello?" They're like, "Hey, this is so-and-so at Ditch Witch. We want to hire you."
Yeah. You're like, "Oh, that's interesting."
Cool. Awesome.
Yeah. You alluded to this a little bit. You said, Meridian has a program.
Yes.
So for anybody that's watching or listening, Ditch Witch is partnered with a local trade school in Stillwater. So it's maybe a half hour away. And we help develop curriculum with them. I think we have 2 separate programs now. One's welding, and I think the other might be material handling.
I believe so. There was 2 separate classes when I went through.
Yeah.
They were on one half of the little auditorium, and I was on the other.
Yeah, so the program with the welding is it's a short training course. We help develop the curriculum. It's good for us because we can bring new employees in. There's always a need for welders. It's good for the local community because we have jobs available. But that's what you signed up for, correct? Is the Ditch Witch / Meridian Technology Center Welding Academy. Can you explain that to me? Talk to me a little bit about what was that? I mean, showing up at Meridian, or did you come to Perry, or what was that?
They hire you full time. So you're an employee from the get-go, which means you have to show up at 6 a.m. Or whenever else they want you to be there, and you go to work. And you went to classes for the first little bit, and then they threw you out there on the shop floor.
What's
and said, "Good luck."
You say you go to classes? You're sitting in a classroom.
You're sitting
and you go,
in
"This
an
is
auditorium."
The equipment? Okay.
They walk you through. We go from like very basics to on the shop floor, but it's a very slow process. We had to go through blueprint reading. I knew nothing, so they had to go through all of the welding. A lot of people who were in that class knew little to nothing.
Oh,
well,
okay.
And there was about 50-50. Some of them knew, some of them didn't. So it made me feel a little bit better coming from absolutely nothing and being in a room full of some people knew.
You're like, okay, good. I'm not the only one.
Woo!
We'll figure this out together.
So that was they went through basics, taught you the different weld types, how to run the machine. They didn't go too far into them because there's different.
Right.
There's different welders. There's new ones. There's old ones. There's all kinds. So you just kind of get a feel for it, and then
Right. So were you trained on your specific type of welding, or is it just like a crash course of everything, and then you kind of fine tune your skills?
it's more the skills. It's more of how you weld. So you have to have a pace. You have to slow down. It's watching how the weld pools. I don't know how to describe this to you. It's
No,
just
you're
kind of a
describing it great.
hands-on. It's easier when you're seeing it happen, right? You're
Well,
watching
do we
the
have a
weld
welder?
pools.
Do we- can
Yeah.
we grab
Do
a-
we have something in the back?
Yeah, I don't think we do. You're gonna have to just keep describing with your hands.
But there, you start and there's a trigger, everything, and
Yep.
then they start. That hits right with this electric, and you start melting this wire that's coming through, and it's kind of scary. Like I said, just as scary as it was a billion years ago when I saw my dad do it.
Right. It's the same thing.
Yeah, it's the same, except now I'm like right there, and it's sort of flying at my face. So that was a little terrifying.
Yeah.
But once it started, you just kind of get a feel. It's kind of a flow. You just
Okay.
kind of get comfortable with how fast your welder's running.
Right.
How the heat was definitely something that took a couple weeks to get used to. But after that, you go in, it's hot in there anyways.
Yeah.
So it's just kind of
That's just your job.
the job.
It's just what you do.
So they taught us all of that and how to get a feel for it, how to change what's going on your welder, and then you go from there. And after blueprint reading, it kind of, the two halves of what we had learned in the classroom, on the shop floor, kind of finally came together. And by the end of it, I kind of knew what I was doing.
Yeah.
And it helped.
Well, there's
when
no
they-
training quite like on the job though either.
No.
Yeah.
And they did throw us out there on the field with
Okay.
a trainer
Yep.
for I think a couple more weeks, and then it was, we're putting you on the shift you applied for, and
Right.
good luck.
And good luck.
Yeah.
So that whole process from when you enrolled or got hired on to you're on the floor and welding now, that was what, 6 weeks, 8 weeks, give or take?
It was short.
Yeah.
It went by fast, and I don't know if it was just because I had thrown myself into this so much that the time just kind of went over my head, but I think it was about a month and a half.
I got you.
Yeah.
Okay, so when you're out there on the floor, do you, as parts come across there, do you know what you're welding?
I didn't for a good long time. Still don't most of the time, but I got a tour from my lead. I worked night shift for the first 6 months of the job.
Okay.
And my lead took us in a little go-kart, and we ran around, and she went and she showed us what was going on. This is where this goes, and this is where this part you're working on right now, this is what it goes to. And we kind of got a feel for what we do is important.
Right.
It
It matters.
Oh, yeah. And I think that was the first time that it really clicked for me that, okay, I'm not just making these parts and they're just going off into the middle of nowhere,
Yeah.
to
Nobody's
sit
gonna
somewhere.
see them ever again. It doesn't matter.
They will be seen again, and
Right.
they'll be nice and shiny and pretty on something that's doing real hard work out there.
Yeah, definitely.
So that was kind of a wake-up call for me that, hey, it is just a job, but it's important.
It's an
still.
important job.
It doesn't matter. You still wake up the same morning. It gets a little monotonous sometimes, but it was a good reminder.
Yeah, no
Very
doubt.
good reminder.
Well, we're glad that you're on the team, that's for sure. And hopefully you're around for a long time. I think we're coming up against that at time, but I do have one final question for you. Are you a dog person or a cat person?
I have a cat.
You have a cat?
Yes, his name is Caspian, and I love him.
Say his name again?
His Caspian.
Caspian.
Yes.
Caspian the cat.
Caspian the cat, and he is spoiled rotten.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So no dogs, one cat.
Had dogs.
Yeah.
But I prefer my cat. He's quiet.
There you go. Cat person. Awesome. Aiden, thanks for hopping on today. It's been a
great
pleasure
to be here.
talking to you and
Thank
getting to
you.
know you a little bit.
Yeah.
All right. That's it for today. We'll catch you next time. Thanks.
Well, that's it for this week's episode of Beyond the Moon. Be sure to subscribe to this podcast on your favorite platform and follow us on social media @Ditch Witch.